Hello, today we're gonna take a look at the original Little Nightmares, check what's happening out of bounds or just hidden in plain sight. So let's get started. This spooky cutscene with the lady is happening very close to the place 6 is sleeping, right behind the left wall. And the lady is actually wearing a mask. Here's how the model looks without it. Oh wait, no, sorry, that's the DLC, we're gonna do the DLCs in the next video. Here's how she looks normally. As for 6, she wakes up on the suitcase that has 2 photos attached to it, a pair of birds, such cuties, and a picture from Tarsier's cancelled game, The City of Metronome. In the second chapter, in a room where the janitor stores toys, you can find a Jack-in-the-Box with the same character's head. In that game, metronomes were kids who got their souls stolen and were commanded to do low-level jobs for the citizens of the city. Sounds familiar? In her travels through the mall, 6 encounters several newspapers, and even though you're not really supposed to see them up close, they do have some interesting pictures. There are 3 different papers in the game files, and here they are, AI upscaled for your viewing pleasure. We got what looks like a very early arrival of the guest chapter, pig's head, maybe something on a plate, a good boy, a weird structure in a field, and a TV with a sofa. Could be Pale City. Alright, who is this guy? Peeking at 6 through the window. Well, turns out it's not really a guy, but a bag of meat. Nice way to reuse assets. The hanging man in the next room, who some people think is a specific character from the second game, on a close inspection doesn't seem to have any definitive likeness to the Thin Man, although if at some point Bandai decides to make them the same person, they do look similar, just not the same. Oh, and he seems to be missing some skin on his fingers for some reason. Later in the prison chapter we have a first look at the friendly caretaker, the janitor. He's dragging a cage in the distance, but if you take a close look at his badge, you'll notice one of not so many instances of Latin alphabet being used in the Little Nightmares universe. Maybe it's a leftover before Tarsier decided to make a unique language for this world. It seems that his name is Roger, and there's a little cute eye logo there as well. The other instance of English in the game is the soap bars in the kitchen. In the secret room with the gnome, you can find an oscilloscope box, a device from Static, a game released by Tarsier Studios in 2017. It's also present in the hospital and Pale City sections of the second game. At a second encounter with the janitor who comes out of this door that has nothing inside it like every other non-playable area, let's take a closer look at the sleeping kids. And the cafeteria where the kid gives 6 bread looks like this. Just in case you're curious, cabinets have this written on them. Maybe it's the cursive for whatever language this world uses. They did the same type of squiggle in the second game as well. For the very end of the prison chapter, to make the light cast a shadow in a specific way, a random block was added at the top of the doorway. Smart. For the next chapter, developers really wanted to use the starting room twice, but due to the level geometry it just couldn't align with the 6's adventures through the layer. So what they did, they just copy-pasted it, and so the level has 2 copies of it. If you encountered the Moss surveillance system, you might have thought that it's just playing a video or showing a still picture perhaps, but no. Way above the playable area, developers put little scenes that 6 can see on the monitor. And there is even one of the chefs sleeping here, what a cutie. The shelves are fake though, perhaps to save on resources. The other scenes are also simplified as much as possible. Moving up the stairs into the janitor's room with very cute wallpapers. Look, there is 6 and a gnome. And on the other pattern you can find the lady and the janitor himself. When the game needs an NPC, it's usually loaded beforehand and then stored somewhere outside of the map so it can be called into a scene momentarily. This explains lots of gnomes stored on tiny platforms behind the camera. And here's Janitor, or rather his arms, waiting for his scene to start. Right here, instead of using just the arms, developers put the entire model behind the wall. Look at that smile. Entering the kitchen, not a lot of interesting stuff in here, but here's a closer look at the smoking chef in the distance. And at the meat grinder there is a dev note explaining the way the grinder works. As the meats are being used up to make sausages, they get teleported on this little platform behind the camera, most likely to make sure that the physics engine isn't gonna freak out when the meats are being lowered inside the grinder, although sometimes it still happens. The part where guests arrive on a ship to the Maw is rather nice, and here's how the game handles them. Guests spawn inside the boat, walk to the end where they disappear just to be spawned again back on the boat. Hooks work the same way, and speedrunners use this knowledge to warp through the kitchen, saving huge amounts of time by grabbing a hook that's about to disappear and appear in a different place, teleporting Six with it. At this part of the game, normally you can kinda see that there is room behind the tables, but only barely. But what is almost impossible to see from the normal view is this triangular eye thing. What do you think it's supposed to mean? Due to the dollhouse style of the game, it doesn't really have a sidewall anywhere in the Maw. They could have put it and made it invisible, but that would be a waste of time and resources, since the player will never see it. Never, except in this room. This is the only place in the game with a sidewall, and all because of the mirror. It needs to reflect something. The way developers made sure that guests never run out of food to consume is quite simple. As they put it in their mouth, it just falls back onto the table. Okay, that should be illegal. Last chapter of the game is rather short, but nonetheless there are quite a few interesting tricks that developers used while making it. The boss fight Room 6 ends up after defeating the lady is not the same room the fight started in. Above it there is a copy in which the lady is already defeated. To quickly skip the long fight for testing the rest of the ending, developers put several teleport triggers. One is inside the second room, but positioned in a way that it can never be seen by the player, that teleports you to the elevator, where Six kills the guests. The other one is above the ceiling of the small room with the mirror. It skips the boss fight and puts you straight to the tasty part. If you wonder what's at the top of the stairs, it's just a huge white rectangle pretending to be a sunny sky. After the credits though, Six is put into a little prison inside the Maw, where she can still be controlled and a fake double stands beside the door. I guess it was easier to do it this way instead of restricting movement on the playable character. The end. Thank you for watching, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing, there will be more stuff soon.